All right, folks, let's go ahead and take a look at this assignment. I realized I made a mistake on that first answer, maybe more, right? So as I'm going through it a second time, but look at the domain and range of each of these functions. So basically, domain is just how far on left and right on the x does it go. So if you look at this, on the x, it actually goes as far. It just keeps going to the left. You see, because that arrow down there means it's going to keep going to the left, and the the right is going to stop actually right here. So I made a boo-boo on that. So the domain is going to be from negative infinity to x, and then it's going to stop, and it actually has a stop, so it actually has a little underline at 5. Okay. Cool thing is that if it's like this, then you can just say, you know what, it's going to be just everything that's less than 5, right? And you don't have to do the negative infinity. Okay, so that's the domain. So I made a little mistake on the solution, and the range is how far up and down, and actually I'll do it on the side. So it's going to keep going down. So see the down arrow right there, right? That means it's going to go as far down as we can see, and it's going to go as far up as right there, because it stops right there. So it's actually going to stop there, right? So we'll say this is going to be y is less than or equal to 2. Okay. Okay, same thing. So I use red for x for the domain and y for the blue for the range, right? So domain, so I'll do it down here. So it's going to go as far left as right here, and it's going to go as far right as right here. So it only stays between those two numbers, which is -5 to -2. If you're looking at it, it's right here, -5 to -2 only. Okay, so we're going to say x in the middle. If you're not sure how to do it, just put x in the middle. The lower number, the smaller number, the bigger number, and then it's always going to be less than and less than. And then if it's solid, if it's a solid dot, then you would put an underline. If it's not, then you leave it open like how I have it. Okay. The range is going to be, and we'll do it along the y-axis, as far up as 4. It's going to go as far down as -4, and it's not going to include 4 and -4. So you're going to put a y in the middle. Smaller number is -4. Bigger number is 4, and then it's going to be less than, and they're both open, so we can leave it as a just less than, no underlines. Okay. Okay, this one, it's going to on the x, it's going to start here. I'll do it here. It's going to start at -4 and not counting -4, and it's going to keep going. You see that arrow right there, that little arrow right there? It's going to keep going to the right, so it's going to go right here, and it's going to keep going forever. So we're going to say it's just everything that's x is greater than -4. Okay. If you want, you can write it in a slightly different way, and I'll only show you this once. So you can say that, okay, well, x is in the middle, and it goes from -4, which is a smaller number, and infinity is the bigger number, and you can do, less than, right? Because it's in between there. So that's another way to do it. Right, but you can see that that's exactly the same answer as what I had earlier. Because if we don't consider that positive infinity, it's just x is bigger than -4, written backwards. So if I backtrack myself, you can see that it's the same thing. X is bigger than -4, so it's the same answer. Okay, so just a different way to write it if you want to include the infinities. Okay, and this one, the range is going to be. The range is going to be as far down as -1, and it's going to go up all the way. And see that arrow right there? So it means it's going to keep going up. So it's going to be y, which is greater than -1. Okay. Okay, next one. Right. The domain is going to be from, let's see. So it's going to keep going to the left. So that means that it's -infinity, and it's going to go all the way to the right up until 3. And you see how it doesn't, you don't see a dot. I mean, if you see a dot, it'd be great, but you don't see a dot where it doesn't actually just kind of follow along the 3. That means it actually does stop there. Okay, so that means that this one's going to be x is less than, because we want everything to the left of it, and it does stop there, so we want to put underline for equal to 3. the range, which involves a y, and the lowest it goes is right here, and it actually does stop at this -2, and it goes up as high. And you see that it has an arrow, which means it's going to keep going up and up and up and up. So it's going to be anything bigger than -2. So y is greater than or equal to -2. Okay, and it's equal to, underline, because it does have a dot there, which means it actually does stop there or start there, if you want to look at it in that way. Okay, the x's, okay, I'll put it up here. It stops here, the lowest x it goes, and the furthest x, it looks like it goes all the way to 3 only. Okay, and it actually stops here. So your x is actually in between two numbers, right? Lower number is -4 right here, because that's where -4 is. And the higher number is 3, because that's where the 3 is. Okay, it's going to be less than and less than. And then the 3 has the underline because the 3 is solid. Okay. The y, or the range, the furthest down it goes is, we'll do on this side, is down here. It doesn't include this point, because you see that dot, which means it's -5. And it doesn't actually stop at 2, -2. It actually goes past that. It goes all the way as high as right here, and actually stops there. So we're going to go y, right? And then less than, smaller number is -5. Larger number is 2, and then it actually does stop at 2, so we're going to put underline on the 2. Okay, next one. The x is going to stop here, and the arrow, which means it keeps going forever. So this is going to be x is greater than, because we want everything bigger than, and then it does stop at -4, so bigger than or equal to -4. Okay. The y, or the range, the lowest it goes is about right here. Yep, 0. And see the arrow again? That means it's going to keep going up. So this is going to be y, which is greater than or equal to 0. Okay, and those answers should match up with what I have in my solution, except for that first one, right? I made a little boo-boo on it. I think I saw it as an arrow right here. That's why I went and did -infinity to +infinity. Okay, this one here, it's going to go as far left as -5, and it stops at -5, and it's going to go as far right as 4, and it stops at 4. So this one is going to be x in the middle. -5 is a smaller number, 4 is the bigger number. Less than or equal to, because it stops there, and less than or equal to, because it also stops there at 4. Okay, this one, the lowest, the furthest down it goes is at this point right here. So this is the lowest, and actually stops there. And the highest it goes is not that point, but a little bit higher right here, and it actually stops there. So this one's a little tricky if you're paying attention to the dots or the points. The points aren't actually where, usually the points are, but it doesn't necessarily mean that that's where it starts and stops. Okay, so this one, the domain, the range is going to be y in the middle, right? And the lowest number is -3, and the higher number is +3. So, and both those stop at each of those locations. So it's going to be less than or equal to for each of those. Okay. The domain, it's going to keep going to the left, so it's going to be this, and then it's going to actually stop at 0, and so that means that it's going to be everything that's x, and it's going to be less than or equal to, because it does stop. You can see that there's a solid dot right here. So, and then it's less than or equal to 0. Okay, the range, the lowest it goes is right here, and it actually does stop at -3, and you see the arrow up there, it means it keeps going. So it's going to be all y's which are greater than or equal to -3. Okay, this next one here, let's see. Keeps going to the left, and it keeps going to the right. See those two arrows right there, which means it's going to keep going. So this one is, you can say all real numbers. I'm just going to put down -infinity, oops, not equal to, -infinity less than x less than infinity. Remember, I told you guys it's always a less than symbol if you're going to write it as a compound one-liner inequality like that. Okay, this one, you can see the arrow. It just says, hey, it doesn't actually hit the 2. It just keeps going in that direction. Right? So it gets closer and closer. And the same thing with the -3. So the lowest it goes is -3, and the highest it goes is 2, not counting 2 and not counting -3. So it's going to be -3, 2, y in the middle, and it's going to be less than and less than. All right. So if you have further questions, ask me about it. It's backside. X, it's going to start here, and it's going to keep going to the left because you see that arrow up there. It points to the left. That means that this is going to be X is going to be less than or equal to 4. Okay, because that's what we're talking about. The Y, the lowest it goes is 0, and it goes up as high as 2, and you see that it kind of keeps falling to 2. That means that it doesn't actually touch the 2. So it only is between 0 and 2. So it's 0 and 2, the Y in the middle, and it's less than or equal to, because it does live at 0, but it doesn't actually reach 2 yet. Okay. This one right here, you see the arrow to the right, arrow to the left. That means it's going to keep going to the left. It's going to keep going to the right. So it's negative infinity to positive infinity. All right. The Y's, we have, looks like this is the furthest down it goes, and it actually hits that spot. And you see the arrows that keep going up or diagonally up. That means it just keeps going up, which means that it's everything bigger than -4. So Y greater than or equal to -4. Okay. The X, the domain, looks like it starts at -2 and it actually stops at 5, not counting 5 or not counting -2. So my domain's going to be accordingly -2 in the middle, on the side, X in the middle, and 5 on the right hand side, and it's going to be less than and less than because they're both not counting those spots at -2 and at 5. The Y, we got the lowest it goes is looks like right above 0, and then the highest it goes is 2, and actually it stops at 2. Okay, there's an open dot there, but you see right here, that's 2 right there. 2, that's the height of 2, so it actually stops there. And so it would be Y in the middle, 0, 2, and it actually doesn't stop at 0, but it actually does stop at 2. So you need to underline for that. Okay, almost done. Okay, the X, left arrow, keep going left, diagonally left, but still left, right arrow. That means that the domain goes all the way to the left and all the way to the right. So the domain is going to be negative infinity, X, infinity. If you need to stop or rewind it or listen to it again, it's fine. The range, it's going to keep, see the down arrows, diagonally down, but still go down. So it's going to keep going down, and it's going to go up as high as 3 only, and actually stops at 3. So it's going to be Y is less than or equal to 3. Okay, so pay attention to those arrows. Those arrows mean a lot. All right, the domain, this one actually stops at -4. Oops, I was going to use red. Stops at -4, or starts at -4, either way, and actually stops at 4. So -4, 4 is the other end, X is in the middle, and then they both stop at each of those locations. So it's going to be less than or equal to. Okay. The range, it's going to go as far down as 0 and actually stops here, and it's going to keep going up and up and up until the 5, and it actually stops here on the 5 as well. Okay, so we're talking up and down on the range. So 0, Y less than or equal to, and then 5. Okay, this one starts at -4, not counting -4. It's going to keep going to the right. You see the diagonally down arrow. That means it's going to keep going to the right forever. So this means that it's going to be between -4 and infinity, or you can say X is going to be bigger than -4. No underline because it's hollow. It's an open circle. Okay, it's going to go as far down as, and you see this diagonally down right there, arrow right there. That means it's going to keep going down, and the highest it goes is 3, and it doesn't count 3. It's going to be open circle. So we're going to say that the y is going to be less than, open circle means no underline, and then 3. Okay, and the last one, let's see, this arrow right here means that's going to keep going to the left, and it's going to go to or right as far as right here, which means we're going to stop right at 0. It's not going to count 0. So this is going to be x is less than 0. Okay. The y, keep going down. So it's going to, this arrow means it's going to go diagonally down, which means it's going to keep going down. It's going to go as high up as 4. It's not going to count 4 because it's an open circle right at 4. Okay, talking about the y. So it's going to be y is less than 4. Okay. Domain, see, it goes as far left as -4, and it counts that. It's going to keep going to the right. You see this arrow right here, which means it's going to keep going up and right, which means it's going to keep going right, which means that my domain is x is greater than or equal to -4. Okay, my y, or my range, is going to go as far down, and it shows right here. It hits that spot on the y, and it also hits that spot. So the lowest is going to be at -2, and it actually counts. And this arrow means it's going to keep going up and up. So that means that my y, or my range, is going to be bigger than or equal to -2. Okay, and last one, it's going to go as far left as -2, not counting it. It's going to go as far right as +2, not counting it. So it's going to be -2, +2, x in the middle, less than, not counting it, and less than, not counting it, which means no underlines. And the last one, the range, is going to go as far down as, and you can see, don't look at the endpoints this time, right? At least for the beginning of it. It's going to go as far down as -3 right here, the spot. So it actually hits that spot, and it's going to go as high up as, not 0, because it actually goes higher than that, all the way up there at 2. So the y, -3 to